Hello, everyone, and welcome to our today's mini session, Office 365 Lifecycle Management with SysKit Point. I hope you guys enjoy sessions from Eva and Mario. And my name is Alexandra, and I work as a product designer here at SysKit. And in today's short session, I'm going to guide you through the key SysKit Point features that will help you govern your workspace from creation to the end of life, which will eventually lead to keeping your environment clean and secure. For those of you who are new to the tool, SysKit Point is a comprehensive Office 365 governance solution which was created for admins and business users to help them easily govern their workspaces. This includes Office 365 inventory, access reporting, governance policy enforcement, complete lifecycle management, which we'll talk about today, analytics and usage metrics, proactive security alerting, and so much more. Before we start, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A feature in GoToWebinar's user interface on your right-hand side, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end of our session. All right, so let's jump right into our today's presentation. Give me a second to share my screen with you guys. All right, so just a second here to see if we are on the right screen. All right, let's now start with identifying what are actually the common reasons why people even consider creating governance policies for their lifecycle management. Every IT manager, CTO, or collaboration manager who is working with modern workspaces strives to maintain their environment clean and make sure users are being focused and productive. Once your organization has made an investment in this technology, it's natural that you want to drive its adoption and you want people to actually use it. And that's when companies enable self-service so that users can create teams and groups as they want, which is great in the beginning to increase the adoption. But if it's uncontrolled and without proper governance, it often leads to chaos very fast. And cluttered environment actually decreases your users' productivity, and that is something you are hoping to avoid. And this has especially become a problem in this COVID-19 pandemic times when a lot of companies actually switched to remote work without having time for proper preparation. So the implementation of Microsoft Teams and other services is very fast. And if it's not governed correctly, it leads to uncontrolled sprawl and nobody even knows which of those newly created workloads are actually needed. So the ideal use case for you here would be to combine your users' freedom, which drives the adoption, and while maintaining your full control over your environment. So let's move on to how the workloads lifecycle actually looks like in practice. Just to briefly clarify, when I say workload, I'm talking about either a Microsoft Teams, SharePoint site, or Microsoft 365 group. For the purpose of this presentation, let's talk about an imaginary Microsoft team you're creating for your company's team building this summer. Obviously, its lifecycle starts with the creation, followed by usage and hopefully proper management. However, once this event is over, sooner or later, once you share that last funny video from your event, it becomes inactive. And that leads us to what we call an end of life. The worst thing you can do is end your story here and let your team linger and then create a new team building team for next summer. What you should do actually is decide whether you would like to archive or delete it, or maybe decide to keep this team for the defined number of days, but it has to stay in your control in order to avoid sprawl we mentioned before. Okay, now let's dive into the part where I'll explain how can you take control of your lifecycle management. All right. We'll begin with the creation of new artifacts in your environment, which leads us to provisioning. So the main idea of implementing workspace provisioning and taking control over the process of creating new workspaces in your environment is to actually prevent sprawl, we mentioned before, without sacrificing the adoption. And that actually can be done with the process you can see on this infographic. So this is what it looks like. The user sends a request for a new workspace, preferably based on one of your predefined templates. You enforce an approval process for that new artifact. So you decide whether you'd like to, for example, have private teams to be automatically approved, or to have single or multi-stage approvals for those who are public, or have some guest users in them, and so on. And only then this team gets created and becomes a part of your environment. By doing so, what will happen is you will actually increase your overall workspace security. You will have a chance to integrate access reviews and policy enforcement automation, which are the features I will talk about soon. And you will optimize collaboration in your organization. And obviously, you will reduce pressure from your IT teams. And I'm really happy to announce that we actually are currently implementing the process you saw on the previous slide in a shiny new feature called provisioning. It will be available early this summer, and I'm really excited to give you guys an exclusive sneak peek of what it will look like at the end of our today's session, so please stay tuned for that. All right, moving on to the part where your artifact is actually being used and managed during his life cycle. We will start with access reviews. So the main idea of this SysKit Points feature is to proactively engage your resource owners to review their sites, groups, and teams on a regular basis. What they review is who has access to what in order to validate that the right people can see your corporate data. So that's really important. The other thing you're doing here is you're making your owners accountable for their content. You are delegating the responsibility from IT teams to owners once again, because they have more operational insights. Admins doesn't really know if somebody should be in a certain team or group, or if some, I don't know, externally shared files should remain shared or not. So you're giving that to your actual owners who know more about that team. Another thing you're doing is you are enforcing compliance and therefore reducing some possible risks. And last but not least, you have a written proof of the owner's accountability and a detailed overview of the progress. Here's what the process actually looks like. Admins are the ones who are preparing access reviews. They're detecting if there are any sites without owners, so they need to figure that out before the access review actually starts, because the owners will receive a notification once it started in an email saying that they need to perform an access review. They will start with it, obviously, and the admins will keep track of their progress. You can also set up automatic reminders for those who haven't finished their tasks, and at the end, admins can also review owners' performance. But I would like to show now what it actually looks like in SysKit Point. So let's go and see how this will be presented in an inbox of your actual end user. So we are now looking at Cork's inbox. He is, let's say, a sales manager in your company, and he received an email saying that he needs to perform an access review for these artifacts where he is an owner of. What he does is he simply clicks on Review Now, which takes him straight to the SysKit Points interface, and he can see the progress of this access review. He can see that some of his fellow owners already completed some tasks, some of them he already did. And now for today, we will review, let's say, Q&A team. So this leads us to this actually three-step wizard with a summary, where you can see an overview with all the basic information about your team. And on the first step, you're actually validating membership. So what do you want to do here? You want to make sure that all of these people should really be in this team. For example, is this external user supposed to be here? Maybe even this user with block sign-in is suspicious for you. And you can easily filter them using our built-in tiles. For example, if you're interested only in guest users, you select this and you can remove them straight from here. Once you're happy with membership, we are moving on to the content part. So this is where you check out any links and shared files that should maybe no longer be available. So once again, you have these filters where you can see how many files were shared outside of this team, either inside of your organization or outside of your organization. You can filter by those who are shared externally, and most importantly, the anonymous links. Once again, if you, for example, think that this should no longer be available, you simply click on it and remove the sharing link right from this step. At the very end, you get the review summary, you see all the steps you took, and you go ahead and complete the review. You can record any comments you would like, and that's pretty much it. All right, now we will go back to our presentation. to talk about our next feature, which is called policy enforcement automation. So during the life cycle, it's important to have some rules in order to stay compliant, but without a constant manual interference. So most companies do have a set of rules that is needed for optimal Microsoft 365 performance and secure collaboration, and you're probably aware of that, but it's simply too much manual work. If your company, on the other hand, does not have that set of rules, there are many best practices available to help you get started. And we chose a couple of those and decided to help you enforce them in this feature by completely automating them. Before I show you what the feature looks like, just quickly, I would like to emphasize some of the benefits. So definitely there is no need for manual detection, as I said, of non-compliance because Point does that for you automatically and continuously. You can decide on having automated cleanup. And third, as with all of these features, you are decentralizing management. So you are giving this task to the people who have best operational knowledge. And fourth, you have written accountability of everyone included in the process. And the final result here is obviously a continuous compliance, but without manual intervention and reliability. Now we will jump back to SysKit Point once again. Okay, first, I would like to show you what it looks like from your admin's perspective. So in order to set this feature up, you just had to automated workflow section in the settings, and you go ahead and create new policy. We already talked about access reviews, and these are the other ones we are offering at the moment. So you can define minimum or maximum number of owners for your teams and groups and detect any orphaned resources in your environment. For example, if you want to set up maximum number of owners, we can say that it should be 5, 4, or 3. Minimum is quite the same, so let's just go ahead and do that one. And you can set up reminders and decide if nobody answers to this task that you can let SysKit Point automatically archive or delete it, whatever you prefer. Now we will go back to Cork to see what the email will look like once he receives these tasks. Okay. So Cork will actually get an email saying that this team, where he is an owner, needs to have a minimum of 3 owners. He once again clicks resolve. That leads him straight to the SysKit Points interface, where he can see that he's the only member, there are no owners, so he can obviously promote himself, and then he can also manually add some new people to become owners until he reaches the number 3, which was designed by your organization's policy. Once you have 3 owners, you can go ahead and resolve this task, record any comments, and that's pretty much it. One more thing. Okay, we obviously saw the emails, but your end users can also head to My Tasks, which is the part of the application where they can see all the tasks that are active, that were assigned to them, and they can resolve them all from this place. They can also see the history of all their tasks. All right, let's now go back to our presentation once again. All right, finally, we reached this part where your workload is no longer being used. As I told you, this is the most important part. You do not want to let it linger here. It has reached its end of life and you have to decide what to do with it. Now let's talk about end of life management with SysKit Point. Obviously, if you're taking care of workspaces that are no longer being used, you'll have a clutter-free tenant, and that is something you definitely want. SysKit Point can help you by automatically detecting those inactive SharePoint sites, Microsoft 365 groups, and Microsoft Teams. You can set up a policy that creates tasks for owners to manage their inactive resources regularly, and they can decide whether they want to keep it, renew this workspace for a defined number of days, delete them, or archive them. Once again, we are moving back to Cork's inbox to see how this email looks like. So pretty much the same. He got an email saying that sales development team, where he is an owner, has been inactive for 33 days and it needs his attention. So he can straight away decide whether he would like to keep it, archive, or delete it. Let's say for this purpose, we want to keep this team. So we get right here in SysKit Point's interface, you decide on a period you would like to keep this team on. You can also record some comments if you have them. If you change your mind, you can also see some additional information about this team and maybe then decide to archive or delete it. It is completely up to you. And now once more, I would like to go into the shoes of your admin, just to show you how they're actually seeing all these tasks. So admins have this governance style on their home screen where they can actually see an overview of everything that's going on in your environment. So they can see how many scheduled reviews are currently active, how many of them were resolved. They can go to review details. They see the status, which one are pending, which one are completed. They can also export this report if needed for any purpose, and then even maybe resolve it, although that is the last resort. We do not want to do that. And also you have lifecycle management overview where you can see all the inactive resources, the ones that require your attention. And finally, you have an overview of all the active policy violations in your tenant, which resources were impacted. You can go ahead and see all of those right here from this interface. Okay. And that leads us to the end of our today's session. But as I promised, we are a bit short of time, but I promised in the beginning to show you what our newest feature will look like. It's called provisioning. So let's just take a quick sneak peek of how we envisioned this feature. Okay, now since we're short on time, I'm going to skip the admin part and head straight to your end users. So admins will set all of this up in SysKit Point. However, for admin users, we have created a SysKit Point Teams app. So it's a familiar interface they're using every day. And what will happen is they will have installed the SysKit Point Teams app. You can even in the future versions, you'll be able to customize this according to your company's branding needs, and people will start a new request. So they will get a list of these templates, which are actually the ones that your admins predefined in SysKit Point. So they're the ones who decided to have a template for, let's say, finance department for all the teams that are being created from that department. You select that as an end user, you see which channels will be created, which apps will be created, and then you come to the privacy part. And as you can see, at this point, user cannot really choose between private or public because your admin has already predefined this value. So the idea is that finance teams needs to stay private and you are not allowing your end users to make them public. Then you also have some basic information like team name, description, and members and owners. And here you can also predefine this, you can see set by your administrator. You can predefine some owners you would like to be in this team so your end users cannot change them. Or if you allow them to add new ones, they can do that, but they cannot change the ones that you predefined. We'll just input some data here. And this is what the interface looks like once you have a request. You can see details, see what it will look like. You can cancel it if you change your mind. And let's go quickly to the approver section. So the approver could actually be anyone you decide on. So it doesn't have to be your IT team. In this situation, we are in the shoes of Patty. She actually seen that there are 2 requests awaiting her approval. She clicks on resolve, and then she sees all the information necessary. She can also see this timeline. So it was requested by this user. It was already approved by one other users because you decided this is a multi-stage approval process, and it's awaiting your response only. So we go ahead, click approve, maybe even record some comments if necessary, and then your team is approved and you're good to go. All right, so this is it actually. This leads us to the end of our today's presentation. We'll now go ahead and see if you guys have any questions. All right, give me a second. Okay, we have some questions here. So the first one is, can you set up different periods of time for access reviews? Actually, yes. You can, I don't know, if you have some teams that need to be checked only, I don't know, once or twice per year, you can set one access review for those teams. If you have one that are more confidential and have data that you would want to check more regularly, you can do that on a weekly, monthly basis. It's completely up to you. So yeah, definitely different periods of time in access reviews are possible. The second question is there a limit for number of templates in provisioning? No, actually, at this point, there is no limits. It's completely up to you to decide how many templates would you like to give your customers. You can have, as I told you, you can have some about simply about departments. You can have one that are intended for fun. You can have confidential ones for teams with external users, and everything is completely up to you, and it's not limited at all. Who can approve provisioning requests? Okay, yeah, actually, as I told you, it's also completely up to you. So I haven't shown you the admin parts, but in SysKit Point, the admins will have the opportunity to completely customize this. So you can choose whether you want them to be automatically approved, whether you want to have one person approving it, for example, manager of the person who is requesting the team, or you can have multi-stage approval processes where you decide to have a manager, maybe SysKit Point admin, whoever you want. So that is also completely up to you. All right, I think that's all of your questions. Great, so let's wrap this up. That's all for today. I would like to thank you once again, guys, for joining us. Hope this session managed to give you at least an overview of SysKit Point features that will help you fully govern the life cycle of your Microsoft 365 workspaces. And I hope it kind of enlightened you of why it is important to do so. Just a brief reminder, everyone who's registered will receive a recording of the session within a few days. And if you have any further questions regarding SysKit Point or any of our products, please reach out to us using our sales@syskit.com email. It was really a pleasure having you all, and see you next time.